Herkese iyi akşamlar. Avrupa Birliği Türkiye Delegasyonu Başkanı Büyükelçi Sayın Berger, saygıdeğer konuklar. Avrupa Birliği Türkiye Delegasyonu Başkanı Büyükelçi Sayın Berger'in teşrifleriyle düzenlediğimiz COVID-19 sonrası Türkiye-Avrupa Birliği İktisadi ve Ticari İlişkiler hakkında vebinar toplantımıza hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Sizleri şahsım ve Adana Sanayi Odası Yönetim Kurulu adına saygıyla selamlıyorum. Bu önemli toplantıyı ülkemiz ile Avrupa Birliği açısından önemsiyor, ilişkilerimizin gelişmesine katkı sağlamasını ümit ediyorum. Sayın Büyükelçi, kıymetli konuklar, dünya koronavirüsü karşı çok zorlu bir sınavdan geçiyor. Türkiye bu noktada uyguladığı tedbir ve izlediği yöntemlerle tüm dünyada tarafından en iyi notu alan ülkelerden birisi konumunda. Pandemi dünyayı hem sosyal hem de ekonomik olarak derinden etkilerken artık küreselleşme politikalarının sorgulandığı yeni bir dünya düzeni bizi bekliyor. Dünya artık küresel ticaretin yerine bölgesel ticarete bıraktığı günlere doğru evriliyor. Pandemi hiç tartışmasız dünyanın önde gelen ülke ve şirketleri için küresel tedarik zincirinde yoğunlaşmasının belirli ülkelere bağımlı olmanın ne kadar ciddi ve risk oluşturduğunu kanıtladı. Bu nedenle Çin ve daha geniş anlamda Asya'ya bağımlılığı dengeleyecek şekilde Türkiye gibi mal ve hizmet üretiminde küresel standardı yakalamış ülkelere yönelik yeni bir talep dalgasının geleceğini ifade etmemiz gerektiğini düşünüyoruz. Sayın Büyükelçi, kıymetli konuklar, Avrupa Birliği ve Türkiye ekonomisi açık şekilde ifade etmek gerekirse birbirinden ayrılmayacak kadar iç içe girmiştir. Rakamlar da bunun kanıtlamaktadır ve ispat etmektedir. 2019 yılı itibariyle ülkemiz ihracatının %50'si yani yaklaşık 70 milyar euro Avrupa'ya ihracat etmiş bulunmaktadır. Ülkemiz ithalatının da %35'i yaklaşık yani 68 milyar euroluk kısmı Avrupa Birliği ile gerçekleştirilmektedir. Ülkemiz doğrudan yabancı yatırımların büyük çoğunluğu Avrupa Birliği kökenlidir. Türkiye özellikle ekonomik boyutlarıyla tam bir Avrupa Birliği ülkesidir. Sayın Büyükelçi, kıymetli konuklar, belirli dönemlerde ilişkilerimizde yaşanan bazı zorluklar ve sınamalara rağmen ticaret, göç, enerji, güvenlik ve savunma gibi çeşitli alanlarda işbirliğimiz geniş Avrupa coğrafyası için önemlidir. Pandemi süreci işbirliği ve dayanışmaya her zamankinden daha fazla ihtiyaç duyulduğunu göstermiş oldu. Pandemi, Türkiye'nin Avrupa Birliği için güvenli bir liman, en yakın üretim üssü olduğunu da ortaya koymuş. Mevcut ticaret, nakliye ve tedarik zincirinin sorgulandığı ve yeniden yapılandırmaya çalışıldığı bu dönemde Avrupa Birliği ile Türkiye coğrafi yakınlığının ticaretle ikili ilişkilerde çok daha sağlam bir işbirliği zemin olarak görmelidir. Gümrük Birliği kapsamında ürünlerimizi rahatlıkla gönderebiliyoruz. Sayın Büyükelçime burada özellikle bunu ifade etmek istiyorum. Ancak ürünlerimizi taşıyan tır şoförlerimiz, malını gönderen iş insanlarımız uzun vize prosedürlerine katlanmak zorunda kalıyor. Vize uygulaması Türk insanını çok rencide ediyor. Avrupa Birliği'ne aday olan bizim ülkemize hala vize uygulanmasını anlayamıyoruz. Emin olun, vize uygulaması kalktığında Avrupa Birliği bundan ekonomik olarak bizden daha çok karlı çıkacak. Türk vatandaşları Avrupa Birliği'ne gidecek, paralarını Avrupa Birliği'nde ülkelerinde harcayacak. Diğer taraftan bazı Avrupa Birliği ülkelerince Türkiye'nin kayıtlı ticari araçlarına uygulanan karayolu kotaları ile karayolu taşımacılığında da tarife dışı engeller uygulanmaktadır. Haksız olarak alınan fahiş geçiş ücretleri kaldırılmalıdır. Bunlar Avrupa Birliği ile imzaladığımız Gümrük Birliği anlaşmasına aykırıdır. Biliyorsunuz Gümrük Birliği ile malların serbest dolaşımı esastır. Ama yıllardır bizim mallarımız serbest dolaşamıyor. Türkiye nakliye araçlarından alınan yüksek geçiş ücretleri ithalatçı ülkelerdeki Avrupa Birliği'ndeki şirketlerin de maliyetini yükseltiyor. Burada belirtmek istediğim bir husus var. İş adamlarımıza ve özellikle uluslararası taşımacılıkta yer alan tır şoförlerimize uygulanan vizelerin oluşturduğu teknik engellerle nakliye konusundaki engellerin bir an önce kaldırılması için Sayın Büyükelçimizin desteğini istiyoruz. Bu konuda Büyükelçimizin bir çabası olduğunu biliyoruz ve inanıyoruz ki desteklerini artırarak kısa zamanda bir sonuca ulaşacaktır. Sayın Büyükelçi, kıymetli konuklar, önümüzdeki sürecin bütün dünya için zorlu geçeceğini biliyoruz. Biz Türk sanayicileri ve iş insanları olarak bu zorlukları hep beraber aşabileceğimizi düşünüyoruz. Türkiye ve Avrupa Birliği'nin birbirini tamamlayan ekonomiler olduğunu özellikle ifade etmem gerekiyor. 1996 yılından bu yana uyguladığımız Gümrük Birliği, Türk sanayisinin Avrupa Birliği standartlarında üretim yapmasının yolunu açmıştır. Avrupa Birliği'ne göre ucuz ve nitelikli iş gücüyle coğrafi yakınlığı nedeniyle Türkiye Avrupa Birliği için bir üretim üssüdür. Biz bunu adeta Avrupa Birliği'nin yanı başındaki fabrika diyoruz. Uzun yıllardır Avrupalı üreticilere tedarikçi olarak çalışmış Türk sanayicisi Avrupa Birliği'nin ihtiyaçlarının hemen hemen hepsini biliyor. Alıcıların isteklerine göre uygun kalitede teknoloji ve hızla üretim yapabiliyor. Biz bu ortak tecrübenin değerlendirilmesi gerektiğini düşünüyoruz. Onun için de sizlere diyoruz ki uzaktaki ülkelere üretim yaptırmak için gitmenize gerek yok. Biz buradayız, yanı başınızdayız. Komşuyuz, beraber çalışalım, beraber kazanalım. Ticaret arttıkça, alışveriş arttıkça dostluklar ilerleyecek, siyaset normalleşecek. Avrupa Birliği ve Türkiye beraber çalışmaya mahkumdur. Tarihte de böyleydi, yarın da böyle olacaktır. Sayın Büyükelçim, pandemi döneminde Türkiye imkanları ölçüsünde başta COVID-19'dan etkilenen ülkeler olmak üzere birçok Avrupa ülkesine tıbbi malzeme desteği vermeye gayret gösterdi. Bu bizim komşuluk ilişkilerimizin bir gereği. Sizden dünyadaki politik gelişmelerden zaman zaman olumsuz etkilenen politik ilişkilerimizi aldırmadan Avrupa Birliği ile Türk iş adamları arasındaki işbirliğinin artırılması ve aramızdaki sorunların çözümü için azami gayretle desteğinizi bekliyoruz. Avrupa Birliği Türkiye gibi büyük bir ülkeyi, büyük bir pazarı, büyük bir fabrikayı ihmal etmemeli. Desteğini çekmemeli. Bunun için de ifade etmek istiyorum ki size büyük görev düşüyor. Biz de bu yönde çalışmalarınızı talep ediyoruz. Zor ekonomik koşullarla el ele daha kolay aşılacağına inanıyorum. Biz Türk sanayici olarak ülkemize düşen, üzerimize düşen yapmaya hazırız. Sizlerle daha çok beraber çalışmak ve işbirliği yapmak istiyoruz. Sayın Büyükelçim, bugün toplantımıza zaman ayırıp katıldığınız için çok teşekkür ediyorum. Bizi dinleyen herkese sevgi ve saygılarımı sunuyorum. Katılımınız için hepinize tekrar teşekkür ediyorum. Saygılar sunuyorum. Sayın Büyükelçi herhalde bundan sonra konuşmasına devam edecek. Söz şimdi Sayın Büyükelçimiz Christian Berger'de.
Mr. President, thank you very much, first of all, for this very kind invitation to have this meeting. My greetings go to Adana, a place that I visited. I visited your company, and we had I think, a great tour of your textile factory. And I remember this very warmly, that you showed us around, and we were all impressed what you showed us. I mean, all the good things you just said about the Turkish business people, the entrepreneurship, we can see and we could see in your factory. So it was a very impressive moment for us to see what you're doing. You mentioned a number of very important aspects, the very important aspects that were relevant before Corona, and they're relevant now, and that will be relevant also after Corona. One is, and let me start with that, is one of the lessons that we have learned from this crisis, a crisis that has gone around the world with incredible speed, has touched many countries. So the sheer volume, the sheer scope of this crisis is unprecedented. Yes, we have had crises in the past, but not to that extent. And maybe we had crises. Maybe they were as big as this one, but they go back a very, very long time. So we have been really hit hard by something that maybe we were not prepared for, and we need to now learn lessons how to deal better with this. And I come to this in a minute when I speak of what the European Commission or the European Union is doing as a result of this crisis. You made a couple of very important points about trade relationship and global trade relationship. I fully agree with you. We need to look carefully at the figures, and the figures at the moment are not very good. When you look at the figures of the European Union, you will have a shrinkage of growth of about 7.4%. You have an unemployment that is going up to 9%, and you may maybe remember last year the Commission President, Mr. Juncker, when he was leaving in his last speech, he very proudly said that the European Union had reached the highest level of employment in a long time. More than 235 million people were in employment last year. This year, of course, we have this minus of 9%. We also have deficit growth, which is now the budget deficit is around 8, and on average about 8.3%. And something that is important for you and for our partners and close friends and collaborators is the impact on trade. Global trade is going down, and the trade relationship between Turkey and the European Union will also shrink by about 10 to 16%. So these are very important, I think, aspects and figures that have a bearing and an impact on your membership, on the people who are your members in Adana. Now, what has happened, and I come back to the point that you made about supply chain. Turkey is, of course, indeed a very important part of the European supply chain. And what we have seen that the global supply chain has suffered. We have seen interruption of supply. We have seen an interruption of access to raw material. We have seen price for raw material go up. We have seen a shrinkage in the flow of capital. And we have seen an impact, because of all that, we have seen an impact on industries that are very important for Turkey and for the relationship and cooperation between the European Union and Turkey. And some of the industries that really concern you, like textile industry, but also machinery, and motor vehicles. So in general, we have seen a slowing down, a reduction of the flow of goods. We have also learned, as I said at the beginning, the very important lesson that cooperation, solidarity, standing by each other is very important. One example I want to mention is the search for a vaccine. The European Union organized a conference about 5 weeks ago within the international community, with international organizations, but also philanthropic organizations. And we managed to raise about 9 billion euros for finding a vaccine. And Turkey was part of that. There was an important message from the president of Turkey. There was financial contribution to this. It's an example, one of the outstanding examples of the last few weeks, where this need to stand together, work together, cooperate together came to the forefront. But we also had very practical examples of cooperation. You mentioned the very valuable donations that Turkey has made. Indeed, this has been very much appreciated by countries like Italy that suffered very much at the beginning of the crisis, by Spain, by other countries in the European Union, but also the countries in the Balkans, the other candidate countries. It was very important, this show of solidarity. But there was also an aspect that we had to deal with in our engagement with the ministries, Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Transport, and others, and that was the link between the European companies and Turkish companies, European companies that were buying or had been buying, ordered and bought and paid for protective equipment, masks, gloves, and other things. But because of the domestic need, this couldn't be exported. So what we wanted to do, and we had, I think, like-minded people in the Ministry of Trade, we didn't want to damage this relationship, this trusted relationship between European and Turkish companies in the long run. I think we managed. There was in the beginning, there was a problem, but I think in the end we managed. It's a lesson. We have to be very careful. This relationship, this trade relationship, that have been built over many, many years, and we have built trust and confidence in this relationship, is too valuable to us to have it damaged. Other practical examples where we had a close cooperation was, for example, the repatriation or the return of citizens, either from the European Union, from Turkey to the European Union, or Turkish citizens from abroad who were using the European civil protection mechanism for flying back from Latin America and coming to Turkey. So again, a very practical example of cooperation. Again, on trade, I want to mention the introduction of the idea of so-called green lanes, because what happened in the beginning, the borders were closed, internal borders inside the European Union, but also borders with our immediate neighbors. So we had to make sure that the flow of goods, the flow of trade would not be interrupted. So this idea of green lanes was introduced, and we quickly managed to overcome the bottlenecks at the border to make sure that trucks can go, travelers can go, the visa issues can be addressed that you mentioned. So many other things were handled, I think, very, very diligently in cooperation between the institutions and the authorities in Europe and in Turkey, and we managed to overcome a number of these issues. Let me perhaps make a couple of remarks on the crisis and the impact of the crisis on Europe, because it also has a bearing on our cooperation with Turkey. In the beginning, the nation states, the countries, the members of the European Union, but also individual provinces and cities and districts had to respond fast to this very quickly moving disease that was in many different parts of Europe in a different way, in a different scope. So therefore, at the beginning, countries reacted quickly, but it was also equally quickly understood that only the collective of the 27 together could now address such a crisis of such a magnitude. So very quickly, the member states came together on a number of important issues. First, procurement of protective gear. So the European Union launched a procurement together with the member states of the European Union. Secondly, the European Union allowed, under our stability pact, to increase the budget deficits of the member states, so the money could go and flow back into economy. Because as you remember, many measures had to be taken that had an impact on the economy. So a lockdown, a close down, interruption of supply chains, and interruption of production had an impact, obviously, on the economy. So member states had to be given the possibility and the opportunity to actually support the economies. At the same time, the European Union also eased the restrictions on state, so to support companies that used to be healthy companies like airlines, for example. I mean, all of a sudden, because of the lockdown and the disruption of traffic and traveling, companies were in severe economic difficulty, so they had to support it. Now we need to deal with the impact of the measures on the economy, and we need to strengthen the economy and the systems and the structure. So the European Union has put together a package of about 4 trillion euros which is partly buying up securities, public and private securities by the central bank, supporting your partners in Europe, the small and medium-sized enterprises, the generators of employment, supporting certain sectors of the economy, and many other issues that is now coming together, and the European member states in the next meeting of the European Council will decide on this. To have a combination of loans and grants that will be used to strengthen the economy. Another impact, or another aspect where we and Turkey agree, is also to strengthen and to protect the global trade structures, the multilateral structures. So we do not fall into this trap of protectionism, but we maintain a free trade system across the world that has brought prosperity. Sorry, Baha, you are on this channel? No. Now there are two, and I would like to mention a couple of principles. One principle that we're looking into now is resilience and preparedness. Resilience in the sense that we have to strengthen our health systems so that they will not fall victim to an onslaught of additional or too many patients at the same time. And I think we have good examples in Europe, and we have a very good example also in Turkey. The Turkish health system has been very resilient in absorbing a big number of patients. But we need to broaden this out to other crisis response sort of structures. We have, as the Secretary General of the United Nations a couple of weeks pointed out, we have the risk of food scarcity around the world. We have the climate impact. We have many different things where we need to be prepared and ready to act. So preparedness and resilience of our structures will be at the forefront. And we have two big economic concepts that will also help strengthen the economy and deal with at the one hand, with the challenges and the risks that we have seen in the last 2 weeks, but at the same time offer opportunities to the business community. One is the so-called Green Deal. So we want to make the European continent climate neutral by 2050. We want to further reduce the greenhouse gas emission. And this will be affecting many sectors. So transport sector, housing sector, traveling sector, tourism sector. This will affect many different sectors of the economy where we want to have a much stronger environmental aspect and conscious as we have today, in line with the aims and goals of the Paris Agreement, but also our own goals, as I said, by 2050 to have the continent climate neutral. The second one, which will be offering equally big opportunities to the business community, is the digital transformation of our economy. What we have seen the last 3-4 months, was a very steep learning curve in this digitalization. Many things are happening now on formats like we're using now. I think this meeting would not have taken place a few weeks ago. I would have come to see you in Adana. I would have taken the plane. I would have spent the evening with you at a dinner with your colleagues. Now we do this on this platform. We will see much more of this, with many more of this type of conferences. We will also see businesses using far more the internet, the digital tools that we have. This will offer companies to develop new processes, new procedures, new technology, new machinery. So we will see, again, a big opportunity. So my message here, and this is also a message from the European Union and what it is doing, we have a combination of risk that we have to address. We have challenges we have to meet, but we have also big opportunities we have to embrace and we have to grab. One of these opportunities you mentioned, and let me close with this, is the supply chains and bringing production closer to home, so to speak, closer to the customs union, closer to the European Union and Turkey in the customs union. So there are many initiatives, and I think the European Union is also encouraging companies to this, and is also providing support, financial support. Will be providing financial support for this relocation into this closer to Europe. Turkey has a very resourceful entrepreneurship. Turkey has a very skilled labor force. Turkey has the necessary infrastructure and procedures in place. Turkey is following a large number of European standards, regulations, and procedures. So there is a big advantage, comparative advantage of Turkey compared to other countries to attract these industries that are necessary, that are needed from a strategic point of view, and bring them closer to the European Union and to the customs union, including Turkey. Not because we have something against other countries, but what we have seen with this crisis, and you very rightly pointed out, trade may become a regional rather than a global issue. So we need to be stronger back in our region because supply chains, the production itself can be interrupted anywhere in the world. And we know there are certain products that only come from the outside. So I think it is certainly from a strategic point of view, very important and interesting also for the business community to see what can be done to bring this closer. So this is what I wanted to say in answering to your question. How can the European Union and Turkey work together? How can both the European Union and Turkey respond better to this crisis that we have gone through, which is not over yet? So many of the things that we're doing, we still do because we have in mind that certain health measures need to be taken. But we also, as I said, there are not only challenges, there are also big opportunities for organizations like yours, the chambers, and the businesses and the industries. So thank you for this opportunity, and very happy to answer any further questions that you may have.
Öncelikle Büyükelçimize teşekkür ediyoruz. Yalnız benim 2 tane soruma cevap vermedi Sayın Büyükelçi. Bir, tırların geçişi, bir de vize. Bunu biz çok önemsiyoruz. Tırlarımızın rahat geçmesi için, bir de bizim insanlarımızın, ticaret adamlarımızın rahatça vizesiz Avrupa Birliği'ne gidebilmeli. Özellikle de bir haber aldık ama inşallah hayırlısı olur. Sayın Büyükelçimiz Mısır'a tayin olmuş galiba. Buna üzüldük. Kendisine de başarılar diliyoruz. Hayırlı uğurlu olsun diyoruz. Allah muvaffak etsin kendilerini. Gümrük Birliği'nin revizesi de bizim için önemli. Bununla ilgili bir bilgi verelim Sayın Büyükelçimiz. Bir de bunlarla ilgili bize biraz bilgi verirse mutlu oluruz.
Yes. No, I'm sorry, I didn't answer your 2 questions. So these are questions I get so many times that I thought I had already answered it, but I'm very happy to answer. And these are questions I fully understand are important to you, are important to your membership, to your business community, because this really affects the way you interact with European companies. First of all, on visas. So as you know, we have an agreement with Turkey that Turkey will meet certain benchmarks for the visa liberalization. Turkey has already met the larger part of those benchmarks, but there are some outstanding, and we are expecting the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs to finalize the coordination work among ministries to address those outstanding, these remaining benchmarks, and then for the Commission to evaluate, of course, the results, and then propose the necessary measures to the member states and to the European Parliament. So this is still, I'm afraid, we're still waiting for some of the technical aspects to be resolved. On the transport modalities, I need to tell you that transport and transport quotas is the responsibility or the competency of individual member states. This is one of the very few aspects in trade which is not the responsibility of the European Union as such. However, that brings me to your next point, the customs union. We always had expected to address this issue when we're discussing the modernization of the existing customs union. On that one, I think I've said this to you when we met last time, and I'm sure you've had this. You must have heard this also on other occasions. The institutions, the European Commission, the European Diplomatic Service, we all believe that the modernization of the customs union would be certainly a win-win for both Turkey and the European Union. And there are enough studies to show that. Studies made by the World Bank, studies made by us ourselves, and studies made by Turkish trade institutions. So there is a win-win aspect of that, and we would cover very important points. We would cover agricultural products. We would cover not processed, industrially processed products, but fresh fruit, for example. We would cover services. We would cover public procurement. and we would have a trade dispute clause in all that. So we would cover very important aspects. And let me make this point as well. We have seen in the last few months and weeks, we have seen a number of additional what we call trade irritants. So obstacles and problems arising from the situation, but not in line with the customs union. I mean, you mentioned a few yourself, but let me add that we have seen additional duties imposed on products coming from the European Union. We have seen non-tariffs barriers going up, for example, additional documentation, additional disclosure of information that is now necessary. So there are lots of issues that in our view need to be addressed, and there are two sort of schools of thought at the moment. One says, in order to be able to start negotiating the new customs union, the modernization of the customs union, we need to fix the existing customs union. We need to deal with the problems there and then move on. Other people keep telling us or keep saying that maybe we should start negotiating the new customs union right away, and then while doing this, address the problems that we have been facing, or the problems that the existing customs union is now facing. So I really can't tell you which way it will go. There still needs a political debate in the European Union. There are lots of political issues that are still posing an obstacle for moving forward. You may also know that Germany is taking over the presidency of the European Union as of the 1st of July, with a very strong economic very strong economic considerations, being itself a very strong economic power. So maybe we will see something in the second half of the year, some movement there. But I really can't tell you at the moment in which direction this will go. All I can tell you is that as commissioners that have visited Turkey and on the occasions of our business forums, on the occasions of our business dialogue and economic dialogue, we have said we would like to move forward on this issue. But of course, again, at the same time, let me mention that there are a number of political issues that need to be addressed before we can do this.
Sayın Büyükelçimize teşekkür ediyorum. Yalnız Büyükelçim konuşmalarının arasında Avrupa'dan gelen mallarda ilave belgeler isteniyor diye bir şey söyledi. O belgelerin istenmesi benim bildiğim kadarıyla ürünlerin Avrupa menşeli olup olmadığını kontrol etmek için isteniyor. Bizim ülkemizde birçok ülkeye konmuş bazı koruma vergileri, dumpingler var, ilave gümrük vergileri var. Burada menşe sapması yaratıp Avrupa üzerinden gümrüksüz ve korumasız olan Türkiye'ye ithal edilmesini sağlayan bazı düzenler olduğu için de Avrupa Birliği'ne gelen malların Avrupa Birliği menşeli olduğunu kontrol için ilave evraklar istendiğini belirtmek istiyorum Sayın Büyükelçime. Bu arada da bizim ekranımızda bazı sorular var. Bu sorularda müsaade ederseniz Sayın Büyükelçimize iletmek istiyorum. Sayın Büyükelçimiz ne der bu konuda?
Please.
Buyurun. Bir yukarıdan aşağı bir alalım soruları şöyle.
En yukarı burası başkanım.
Dijital dönüşümde Avrupa Birliği işbirliği yapacak önemli fırsat alanları var. Bu alanda mesleki ve yüksek öğretimde Avrupa Birliği'nden ne tür destekler alabiliriz diyor bir katılımcımız. İkinci soru, Avrupa Birliği'ndeki insan kaynaklarının desteklenmesine yönelik orta ve uzun vadede yatırım ve finans desteklerine yönelik politikalar nelerdir? Bir katılımcımız vizelerin kaldırılması için nelerdir? Tabii bizim ülkemizin şeyi bu. Bir soruda salgın süreci tüm devletlere ticari eşitsizlik ve ekonomik güven konusunda yeni bir misyon yükledi. Avrupa Birliği bu sürece nasıl bakıyor ve yeni normal nasıl şekillenecek? Bu kadar. Şimdilik bu kadar. Gelen olursa yine Sayın Büyükelçimizin zamanını alırız. Uygunsa tabii zamanı.
Thank you very much. These are, I think, very, very valid questions for our topic. So let me start with the first point of digital transformation. So as I said, this will be one of the big investments of the European Union to help companies to move on into this digital transformation, but also to set aside, to provide also the necessary regulatory framework. So there's also legislation and regular work involved. The ultimate goal is to boost investment, and to boost investment in a number of areas. One is in science and technology, for example, to boost investment in supercomputing. Artificial intelligence is, of course, on everybody's mind. That need to be also structured in a way from a legal point of view, but also at the same time, further research and further development needs to be supported. Cybersecurity as an important measure to protect what we're doing in digital transformation is something that needs to be factored in. And then let me move to education. So advanced digital skills will be necessary. So teaching very early in school. I mean, the young generation, of course, grows up with all these digital gadgets and tools and machinery, and this is very technology savvy. But more needs to be done, certainly, both in terms of curriculum development, but also in terms of making the necessary resources available. For example, in many European schools, because of the pandemic, kids have been given laptops or have been given tablets to work from home. So this is part of this. Now, Turkey is offering already a number of very important assets. Turkey is offering a young labor force, a very well-educated labor force, a very technological savvy population and labor force, has the necessary infrastructure and procedures to become a digital innovation hub. As we had a meeting yesterday between Digital Europe and the Turkish the Digital Turkey platform, and there were important aspects were discussed in a close cooperation between European institutions and structures and the Turkish counterparts in this field. This goes also for human resource development. We have had over the years many programs and projects with the chambers of commerce like yourselves, with TOP as your umbrella organization. We have focused on certain areas, for example, on the enhancement of the skills of women entrepreneurs. We had a number of projects that focused on business people who have come from Syria and from other places where they had to flee from. So we have focused on a number of these aspects. We are putting a lot of emphasis on cooperating with the Ministry of Education on enhancing vocational training. We have encouraged the chambers to work with us with the European training foundations to get answers on what type of training, what type of skills do the young people need that will join your companies, will join your businesses. So there are a lot of aspects in schooling, in training, in curriculum enhancement, on the basis of what you as a business community, what you see as necessary. So human resource enhancement and human resource support is important. Now, the angle of finance, as I said, we have a number of projects running, and I would also like to mention that the various scholarship programs that we're running, including the Erasmus Plus program, which is our biggest scholarship program. And we are now going through the debate in Europe for the next 7 years budget. And one element that is already quite certain, that the budget for Erasmus and Erasmus Plus will be doubled, because we have seen the very important impact that it has on young people, but also on issues like xenophobia and Islamophobia and racism, because it really breaks down the barriers between people, and it takes away the fear of the other. So this maybe in the broader aspect of your question about human resources, but I think it is important because Erasmus Plus will now allow people to come to Europe and to either to learn a trade, to spend some time with a company, to do an internship, internship, to be an apprentice, or simply to be a part of an organization for a certain period of time in order to absorb the resources and the skills that are offered there. The question of the benchmarks, the outstanding benchmarks. There are basically 6 outstanding benchmarks, 4 of which are technical, I think can be easily handled. And there are 2 that are more political. One has to do with data protection and the revision of the data protection law. And the second one has to do with the anti-terrorism legislation and the definition of terrorism and what measures can be taken to fight terrorism and only terrorism. So these are issues that are not only technical, that are also political and obviously therefore more complicated. But as I said, we are waiting for suggestions from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs how to tackle those issues. Now, the pandemic and the burden of the pandemic across Europe is an important point that you are making, because when we are talking about digital transformation, when we're talking about the Green Deal, there's two big flagship operations that we want to launch now, have already launched, both in financial support but also in legislation. There's one guiding principle, and that guiding principle is that we must not leave anyone behind, neither a region nor individuals. Neither a region in the sense we have areas or we have regions in Europe that still very much depend on the use of that needs to be changed. There is industry that needs to be updated. There's industry that needs to go through an adjustment process, and of course there are also individuals that must not leave behind. So the point that you're making to find the equal balance to do this across the whole European continent is an important point and fully understood, and is one of the, as I said, one of the guiding principles of what we want to do. I think I've covered all the questions.
Birkaç tane daha sorumuz var. Eğer Sayın Büyükelçimizin zamanı varsa bunları da kendisine arz etmek istiyorum.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Bir katılımcımız, Avrupa Birliği nüfusu yaşlanıyor. Türkiye nüfusu genç. Pandemi döneminde özellikle sağlık ve konaklama sektöründe insan kaynağına ihtiyaç fazlaydı. Bu anlamda Avrupa Birliği'nin bu ihtiyacını karşılamak adına tıp eğitimine destekleme yönelik bir planı var mı Avrupa Birliği'nin? Bu bir soru. Bir durun arkadaşlar. Bir katılımcı, Avrupa Birliği Komisyonu COVID sonrası Avrupa sanayisinin sürdürülebilirliği konusunda her sanayi sektörü için stratejik yol haritası çalışmalarına başlatmış bulunuyor. Bu çok önemli strateji çalışmalarına Avrupa Birliği, Gümrük Birliği kapsamındaki Türkiye'yi de dahil olacağını öngörüyoruz. Bu kapsamda sektörel strateji çalışmalarına Türkiye'nin sektör temsilcilerini de davet edecekler mi? Son sorumuzda bir tane daha var. Korona öncesi ve süresinde birçok fuar B2B toplantılar iptal edildi. Gelecek bir tarihe ertelendi. Bu dönem için alınan vizelerin süresi doldu ya da dolmak üzere. Bu vizelerin sürelerinin uzatılması hususunda Berger'in desteğini istiyoruz. Biz vizelerin kalkmasını istiyoruz. Desteği boş ver. Sayın Berger Mısır'a gitmeden önce inşallah bu işi çözüp gidecek. Kendisini Adana'da misafir edeceğiz, kebap yedireceğiz, bunu kutlayacağız. Bir de salgın dönemiyle değerlendirecek olursak güncel konjonktürde sosyal devlet anlayışı üzerinde yeni yaklaşımlara ihtiyaç var mı? Bu da son soru.
Thank you. Let me actually start with the last question. This is a very important lesson that we have to learn from the current crisis. We have seen in different countries a different way of individuals who were affected by the crisis, how they could be supported. We have seen countries where people became unemployed because the companies had to close down. There was no more production, and they were falling between the cracks because there was no health insurance, there was no unemployment insurance, there was no social safety net. Now, Turkey, and I think all European member states can be proud that we have a social security system that was a safety net that helped people to survive and not fall between the cracks. Therefore, one of the important points that we're doing now in Europe is to make sure that jobs are protected and companies can start up again and can employ. But in the meanwhile, measures were taken. So companies were receiving support for short-term work, or were given other support like tax breaks or whatever other support that was possible, in order to make sure that the bigger amount or number of people can stay in employment or can find employment as quickly as possible. So the lesson learned was we need a resilient social security structure, social security net, and health security net in order to collectively be able to overcome and to address the crisis as we have just seen. On the visa question and visa extensions, this is an issue that has come up already at the beginning of the crisis, because the truck drivers that you mentioned early on, some of them were stuck in Europe, or they lost a lot of time crossing borders. So our member states have kept open their consulates in Istanbul and in other places to issue visas and to extend visas. And if there is a problem, if you are aware of a very specific problem, the member states and the colleagues here in Ankara, but also in other places where there are consulates, have always been willing and open to look into very specific issues. So please, in case you have something on that side, let me know, and I'm happy to pass it on, or I get you in touch with the respective country. Now, on the first question on the population and the sort of the age structure of the population, you're quite right. The European population is getting older, and there are many human resource needs, and we have seen this in quite a number of countries where the elderly, for example, are being cared by health workers who come from other countries, either inside the European Union or from outside the European Union. And the moment the borders were closed and the movement came to a halt, there was a big issue. And it was, of course, it became even more complicated because, as you know, there was a strong recommendation that elderly people should not be exposed to others, to the younger family members. So on the one hand, younger family members could not care for the elderly because of the risk of infection, and on top of it, the people who would normally care, the health workers, were no longer available. So this is certainly an issue that needs to be considered carefully, also for the future, in case something of that sort will ever, God forbid, will ever happen again. We have always had a flow of people into the European Union. You have had many Turkish citizens that found employment in Europe and are still there. So that has always been, I think there. If this will be increased to a larger scale, I don't know. It all depends on the migration needs of our member states. And as you know, some member states have agreements with Turkey that allow people to get easily work permits in the country. So I'm sure this will continue, and we will see a need that will attract obviously young people to work. I will be careful with the brain drain, because I don't think we want to be the reason for that and the cause for that. I think also you need a very skilled and educated labor force in the country. So the right balance obviously needs to be found there as well. On the roadmap that you asked for industries, all I can tell you, what I know is that for different industries, the Commission has come up with support packages, support programs. This is for tourism, this is for agriculture, this is for industry, this is for services, this is for different sectors where discussions are being held. What I always recommend, and I would suggest we should do again, and do hopefully very soon, to have again the business dialogue, the business forum that top, for example, kept organizing with the Euro chambers to see what the needs are on both sides and how we can better cooperate and bring the businesses together again. And eventually we'll have an exchange and an interaction between the trade commissioner and the respective ministries on the Turkish side. So this dialogue, I'm sure we have seen a necessity for that and the need for that because of the crisis, obviously.
Son bir soru var. Sayın Büyükelçinin zamanını aldık ama iki tane son soru var. Korona sonrası Avrupa Birliği ülkeleri tedarik zincirinde söz sahibi olan uzak doğu ülkelerin payı düşer mi? Türkiye'nin Avrupa Birliği'ne ihracatında atak yapabileceği sektörler konusundaki düşünceleri nelerdir Büyükelçimizin? Son soru, Sayın Büyükelçi, COVID pandemik sonrasında küresel işbirliğinin bölgesel işbirliğine döneceğini, bu görüşler Çin'e uygulanan kotaların kaldırıldığı 2005 yılından beri bunu savunduk diyor Sayın bizim katılımcımız. Sayın Büyükelçi, Avrupa Birliği'nde bölgesel işbirliğinin Avrupa Gümrük Birliği kapsamında hızlı geliştirilmesi için nasıl bir yol haritası öngörüyor?
Thank you. I mean, first of all, the European Union is always with our partners. We're trying to create a necessary environment, conducive environment for businesses and for the business community at large. I mean, we are not telling people where to invest and what to do and where to go. I mean, this is up to the business community. We simply try to help by having the necessary regulations, the necessary framework in place that will make it easier for companies. Now, when it comes to the Far East, I think the considerations have to be made by the companies themselves. Can they afford having a far away production chain that could be interrupted by a crisis, as we have just seen, a health crisis, could be interrupted by a breakdown of the transportation network, could be interrupted because people cannot go to work because of the health situation. So these are all factors companies that are producing at the moment in other countries need to consider. And on the positive side, they need to consider the advantages that they can get when they come closer to their own market, the market in Europe, to the market in the customs union. So by using the infrastructure and the labor force and the entrepreneurship that you have in Turkey, I would at least think these are important points of attraction for anyone who wants to invest and think about these issues, where to locate and where to produce. The industries and which industries can be supported and improved. I mean, we mentioned already a few. One is all the industries and components of industries that can be used for the digitalization of the economy, of trade, and the industries that can be used to promote the Green Deal. So any research in greener energy, in greener transportation, in greener housing, and similar aspects certainly will have a very important stance in business and in the trade relationship with the European Union. So basically, what I would then, if I would summarize it, innovative industry in these areas. So in digitalization, but also in the environment. So these are certainly industries that would have an advantage at the moment. Regional collaboration. I didn't want to say that regional cooperation will replace international cooperation. I think we will have international cooperation in the future as well. The question is how we can structure this better, how we can structure in such a way that we will not be caught with a crisis by a crisis as we have just been now. This basically goes back to the first question that you posed by relocating or by having industries closer to home, closer to your own region. And as you know, the customs union that we have between Turkey and the European Union at the moment, even with its limitations, even with its with the limited sectors that it covers, has been a success. The trade volume between Turkey and the European Union quadrupled in 20 years. There are many other sort of industries or agriculture or services that are not covered, and the indications are it would of course have a similar impact on that too. So in that sense, the customs union certainly as an example of a regionalization, of a regional collaboration is a good one in my view. I mean, the evidence shows that it has been successful for both sides. But again, I don't want to say this as at the total exclusion of global trade, which of course will remain. And like Turkey, we are strong promoters of free trade and multilateral trade, and we are very much averse to anything that is protectionism. So here again, Turkey and the European Union are on the same side.
Ben Sayın Büyükelçimize bu katılımlarından ve bu vermiş olduğu bize kıymetli bilgilerden dolayı özellikle çok teşekkür ediyorum. Kendisini Mısır'a gitmeden önce yine Adana'da ağırlamak, misafir etmek istediğimi belirtmek istiyorum. Sayın Büyükelçimize başarılar diliyoruz. Türkiye'de güzel günleri geçti umuyorum. Biz kendisinden birkaç sefer toplantılarda beraber olduk. Gayet de mutluyduk. Kendisine tekrar teşekkür ediyorum. Kendilerine bir sorusu olursa da ben yanıtlamaya gayret gösteririm.
No, first of all, let me thank you for this opportunity to speak with you and your colleagues and your partners in the chamber. It has always been a great pleasure being in Adana, seeing you, and the success that you have as one of the Anatolian tigers, as you're called. It was really impressive to see. The time here in Turkey for me, yes, it's coming to an end, but there are still 2.5 months roughly to go. So hopefully there will be an opportunity to come and see you in person. And I'm very, very happy that even after I leave, finally there will be some living things, 500 living trees behind, to remind ourselves of this time here. So thank you for all that. And I wish you all the best and good luck. And of course, wish you and your family and your companies to be healthy and to get out of this crisis as healthy as possible and as soon as possible. Thank you for everything.
Biz de kendisine ve ailesine sağlıklı, mutlu günler diliyoruz. Çok teşekkür ediyorum.
İyi akşamlar.